Artist Way Revamp for week 2. So I've been trying to do these sort of updates every Saturday. Obviously I'm a little bit late, but I did work on week 2 last week. So week 2 is recovering a sense of identity. So your identity as a creative person, as an artist. And it talks about, the first part is called Going Sane, and it talks about how when you first start to go through a creative recovery process, it can feel like you're kind of going crazy. You may withdraw a little bit. Other people may look at you and be like, you're acting different. But that's really just part of the process. And also too, emotionally, you may feel sorrow sometimes, loss, especially about things you've left behind or dreams you've abandoned, or angry at times, and that this is all just part of the healing process. I know for me, sometimes when I look at creative things that I don't, I haven't done in a long time, I definitely feel very sad about it. Like I do miss sometimes, being in a band or playing music, which I haven't done in a while, things like that. And so it does bring up feelings and emotions for sure, going through this kind of stuff. The second part is about poisonous playmates and about how people that are blocked creatively themselves are not people you can probably share your creative recovery with at this point. And she kind of compares it to with alcoholics or drug addicts. If you're trying to get sober, your friends that are still drinking or doing drugs probably won't celebrate that. And it's the same thing with creativity. If you're recovering your creativity, people that are blocked will probably trigger issues in you or say, oh, well, you can't do that because this, or, they'll be critical and they'll kind of cause you to shut down again. So sometimes you need to keep them at arm's length for a little while. And then she talks very specifically about crazy makers. Crazy makers are people, I'm sure we've all had them or known them in our lives. They're the people that want your time, want your attention, drain you. They always have dramas circling about them, and they're usually people who are creative themselves, but they've subjected their creativity to, instead of like being creative, they create drama in their life. There's always drama. There's always something in their lives, and they can take energy from you. And often creative people will be around them to distract themselves from being creative themselves. Luckily I've been able to spot crazy makers a lot of times. But I definitely know when I was younger, it was a little harder to do that. But crazy makers are definitely people I don't like being around. I remember I knew one person, I don't know if I call them a crazy maker, but they did do some things that drove me crazy for sure. Like I learned very fast to never take a ride from them, because they would say, oh, I'll give you a ride. And then they would be like, you would have to get there in half an hour. And all along the way, they'd have to stop somewhere. And then you'd end up being 2 hours late, and you might as well have just taken the bus. But that's kind of like a crazy making habit. Or the people that they say, oh, I'll meet you at 2 o'clock and it's 3 and they're still not there, and then they always have some drama about why they were an hour late. And I'm not talking about, we all have the odd thing that happens, so I'm not even talking about that, but people have habits consistently. This hasn't happened to me in like a long time. Like I had to think of examples just because at this age, I just don't put up with that in my life anymore. But I remember when I was younger, when you're a teenager or when you're young, you tend to put up with things more, I think, because you don't know any better. And then these are the things that teach you, like, okay, I need to put a stop to that. But when it comes to creativity, you got to carve out some time to let yourself be creative, and there's going to be people sometimes who want to steal that time from you. And so it's all about like how to kind of put up some boundaries and to recognize that behavior in others. So that's crazy making. And then they talk about skepticism. Like when you're going through the creative process, there's times where you're like, yeah, I'm doing awesome, I'm doing great, I'm being so creative. And then other times where you're like, I don't know if this is really working. And that skepticism is normal, and that you just have to keep the door a little bit open, like a crack open, to be like, well, maybe it's possible. And as long as you keep that crack open, you're letting stuff in. So it's saying like it's okay to be a little skeptical, but don't like slam the door on new experiences. And that a lot of times we get offered something from the universe, and we look at it and go, that's too good to be true, and we send it back. And sometimes that's part of the process of learning to trust and learning to say yes to the universe. And then she talks about how important it is to pay attention, and attention to the details, because art is often in the details, and that unfortunately, a lot of the times we don't learn to pay attention until we are in a particular situation where there is a lot of pain. So when we're grieving, when someone has died, we often find, like I know for me, when I'm grieving, I notice things more, I find, like I pay attention more, and life seems like a lot sharper and more present and more real. And also, you know, if we're going through things like divorce or any kind of loss of any kind that's traumatic, and that could be all sorts of things for different people, it often triggers in us paying attention, because we often can only be in the moment, because we don't want to think about the past and we don't know what's going on in the future. So we have to be in the moment, and that teaches us to pay attention. Now, I wouldn't wish any of those things on anybody, to teach them to pay attention, but you know, if you can, without loss, learn to pay attention in your life, then that's very good for creativity, because often it's those moments that will inspire you. So it's about paying attention. And then the task for the week talks about like listing where your time goes, like how much of your time is spent doing things you actually want to do and how much is on obligation, and trying to take some of that time back where you can. And then she gets you to list 20 things that you enjoy doing, and how long has it been since you did them. I mean, one thing I used to like doing when I was younger was horseback riding. I haven't ridden a horse since I was in my 20s, and that's like 20 years ago. So, you know, that's a long time. So maybe I should find some time this year to ride a horse or something. Do that again. And then she gets you to look at affirmations, write affirmations. I do that already, so that wasn't a new one. And then again, imaginary lives. Like if you had 5 lives to live, imaginary lives, what would you pick? And then try to pick something out of them that you could do. And then drawing a circle, a life pie with 6 pieces. There's spirituality, exercise, play, work, friends, and romance/adventure. And you have to put dots on how satisfied you are in that area, and you see where you're lopsided and where you want to, you know, maybe put some more energy in your life. And then she gets you to list 10 tiny changes. So 10 changes you'd like to make in your life, from the very small to the very big, and then pick one of them and do it that week. So I did pretty well this week. I wouldn't say I wrote every day with my morning pages, but I did most days. I did do an artist date. I went shopping and I got some things, which was awesome. You know, issues that came up this week is just, I found like I'm having all sorts of weird dreams. And I think that, you know, I'm not going to share exactly what was in the dreams, but they were pretty pertinent to me and kind of told me like, you need to get back to creating things, because you're, you know, it's been a while, and you need to pay attention. It's like they keep saying, pay attention to me, this, you know, the creative sort of side of me. So, definitely, you know, it's definitely waking some stuff up, because I thought, oh, I'll go through this process, I don't know if anything will happen, but you know, every time I go through this process, I always learn something new and always feel definitely creatively revived. So I don't know why I would think this time I wouldn't, but I'm definitely being surprised by it and where it's leading me. So I'm curious to see where it's leading you. Let me know how week 2 went for you. What sort of struggles did you find with it? Was there anything in the chapters that you felt was especially pertinent to you? Love to hear about it. Let me know. Like and subscribe. I'll see you all next time. Yay!